Welcome, Danielle. Today we're going to talk about your faith journey. And first of all, thank you for sharing with us. Most of us have been here in the last couple of years, and so we've kind of walked this road with you a little bit. But we just want to talk to you for a few moments about the things that you've been through. Let's begin with your childhood. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood and how faith played a role in your life while growing up?
My parents were married when I was born. I was the oldest of three kiddos. The first memories I have of a church, I was in a stained glass church in Girard. The only reason I remember that church, I got really sick in there because I ate my salt dough sculpture cross, and I ended up throwing up in the back pew. That's what I remember about my very first church. I lived with my parents. They divorced when I was 6 or 7. Went to live with my dad. My dad was extremely poor. I was about 12. I was reunited with my mom and lived with them until I was about 18.
Okay, so when was you first really introduced to God as far as like a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and your church experience at that point?
Okay, I went to, started out with my dad. My dad, no matter what the bad he had, he made sure that we got on a church bus every Sunday morning. Church came and got us, and whether it was to get us out of the house and out of his hair, I don't know. But I can remember that church, and I can remember we lived in a community that had what we referenced as the south side of the tracks. And if you were African American, you lived on the south side of town, and you went to the Southern Baptist Church. Well, my dad was really good friends with a lot of the African American people in the community. So I spent a few Sundays in that Southern Baptist church, and the ladies singing and dancing and yelling, and I loved it. I mean, they were like, come on, let's dance, let's go, and I still feel a lot of that in my praise and worship now because I never seen that track line. I had friends on both sides, and it didn't really matter. So that was a big thing for me because they were very accepting. That was the church that brought us food and clothes and things like Christmas. I'm sure that's where it came from. And then I moved on to, when I moved back in with my mom, a friend invited us to church, and there was a youth group, so of course we were going to go. And I was probably 12, but I never really, in hindsight, I don't remember any connection to knowing Jesus in that. It was just what I did. I went through the motions till I was about 16. I refused to get baptized. That much I did know. I wasn't going to be baptized until I understood completely. That was a decent fight between my mom and I. My dad was convinced I was going to go to hell. My stepdad, he said, you're going to hell if you die before you're baptized. I said, well, that's a chance I'll take because I'm not going to get it baptized because it's the thing to do. I went to a church one time, and you had to be baptized to be a member of the church, and I refused. That was actually the church that Dusty and I got married in, but I was probably 16. I can actually tell you, it was in July of 1999 when I first figured it out. I was at Baker University on a youth retreat for, high school age youth. And it took me that long, even though I'd been in the church probably since birth. It took me about 16 years to finally know who and fully understand Jesus and accept him as my Lord and Savior.
All right, so faith always had, at some point, some way, was always an important part of your life. But tell us a little bit real quick about when you first started coming to PCOG.
Glenn and Rosemary invited Dusty. Dusty was doing some work for them, and they invited us in, and Dusty told me, I like that, oh, Danielle, you got to go, you'll like it. And Dusty came in, I said, well, you try it out once. We had some interesting experiences in previous churches, and we just hadn't found what felt like family to us yet. So I sent Dusty to scope out the place. And then he came home, he said, you'll love it. Your Father's Day gift to me will be that you'll go to church with me next week. I said, of course, I can do that. So that was 4 years ago this Father's Day that we've been here. I came in, I thought Larry was the pastor, or Glenn. I can remember, I thought it was Larry or Glenn, and then this guy got up and started talking, and I thought, oh, he must be a special speaker. Very true story, very true. I thought it was Larry or Glenn. It was going to be one of those two. And I'm reading all the stuff back behind going, I don't know what that is. Oh, and I'm Googling it on my phone to make sure we're not in that crazy place again. Like I said, we'd been in some pretty interesting spots. So in the meantime, I'm Googling all these words back behind pastor. And that's how kind of ignorant I was at that time, because I didn't know. And, you got to kind of protect yourself and your family. So after that, of course, I figured out that this was a pretty good place, and we've been here since. But yeah, that first Sunday, if you could have read my mind, you may not have invited me back.
Oh, man. And you've been here ever since and been a very big part of the church, and we really appreciate that. In 2016, you were diagnosed with ovarian cancer. I remember it quite well, the day. I want you to tell us a little bit about that day, how you felt, what you were thinking. If you just take us back to that moment in 2016, that moment when you got that diagnosis, and just what that did to your world and what that did to your faith.
So the little preamble to this is I had gotten really involved in the church just before this diagnosis, and I had been praying, there's something out there for me. I'm supposed to be doing more. What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? And I didn't really have an answer. Couldn't figure out what it was. So then I'm diagnosed. I can remember waking up. Went in for a typical surgery. They had found I had a cyst. I had multiple cysts, actually, on my ovaries. And it was supposed to be a routine removal. It was on a Tuesday morning. Pastor shows up, and I thought, only my pastor shows up for a gynecological surgery, really. And then, I thought, well, all right, you can be here. Not a big deal. Of course, there's always risks. So when I came back around, and he's still there, and he does not look happy, like he looks like he's heard some bad news. And I look up, Reba's in there. They'd called in backup, so I knew something wasn't right. Dusty didn't look very good, and my mom was there. And all I really remember about that was hearing the word carcinoma. At that time, they told me, they thought I had a stage 2 cancer. They weren't sure what kind it was. It was a surreal day. I can remember coming home like, I don't know if anybody's ever had an experience where your life just literally one day just, and it's there's not a word for it. It's surreal. You kind of wake up thinking maybe it's been a dream. Maybe you're going to wake up. Maybe something's changed. I was mad. I was really, really mad. And if anybody has heard me tell this story, I can't explain the level of anger. I felt pretty betrayed. I was scared. I didn't want to tell anybody. I wanted time to process everything that was going on. I felt like I'd done something wrong. Here I was. We had just had this talk. And I say, some of you know, I think I'm a little cuckoo from time to time. But if you see me yelling and pointing up in my car, I'm having a quick discussion with God about what's going on. I like to do it while I'm driving. Don't know why. I just do. And I can remember I was mad. And I was really mad, ready to walk away mad. What good had this done me? What good had it done me to finally be baptized in this church? What good had it done us to be faithful in all aspects of the church? For me to turn around and I have cancer at 32 years old, 2 small children at home. What good did it do me? So my faith then, it was pretty rough. Now I still thought God was going to help me out, and it was kind of like Pastor had just talked about. I knew he could, but what in the world? Like, I can remember calling him dude at one point and saying, dude, what is the deal here? What have I done so wrong? And then I started making deals with him. All right, if you can keep me here long enough, or can you get me to 50? Can you get me to 40? At that time, can you get me to 35? I'll be 35 this year, by the way. But of course, we knew nothing at that time. Can you get me to 35, 40, 50? I was making deals, and that's just what happens. That's what you start doing, I believe.
So tell us a little bit about your faith as you progress through the treatment. That's kind of your initial reaction. As you progress through treatment, as you went through the things that you had to go through, take us through that journey a little bit.
There was a turning point for me at some point. I can't tell you the exact moment or time, but there was a turning point where I said, I've got no other option. I've either got to give it to God or give up. I had two options. I could either, and that was that choice. That was that turning point in the road where it said, it's either going to him or I'm done. I mean, literally, I would be done. And about that time, the song "Great Are You, Lord" had come along, and that has always had a very special place to me, because it dawned on me, if he put me here, he can keep me here. My Creator is also my healer and is my Savior. So I had that moment where it went, okay, if you can put me here, you can keep me here too. And that's kind of where that change in attitude came from. I felt like a new person. I've got this attitude. I had a friend that had told, a family member actually, and he told me, he said, Danielle, you're never going to win a fight if you don't get up after the first punch. And he doesn't realize probably how near and dear that was to my heart, because that's what had happened. I got sucker punched. I laid down, I cried, I worried, I stressed, and I finally said, I've got the strength to get back up and do this. And I had that strength through knowing I had a faith base.
Well, this might be a difficult question. Contrast faith and what you thought about faith when this first happened, and then what you believed about faith after you were able to look back at it. Does that make sense?
I didn't have faith at that time. I didn't have real faith. It wasn't, I say that. I had like a degree of faith, but not a true full faith. I believed, but it wasn't, maybe not enough. Maybe there's degrees of faith. Maybe somebody believes or has faith this high. It's how much, I don't know, maybe like a glass full, half full thing.
You're right. I think there is degrees of faith, because the people who have faith up here are probably the people who've been through.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Right.
It's growing.
Yeah.
I learned to speak positive and not this negative, focus on what was good. And I had to come to the conclusion that God had a plan for me, and I had to trust that plan. I had to let it go. I had to trust that his plan was good for me. That's what it was. I had to trust him.
So, remission. Let's talk about that. Faith after remission. How did you feel when it was all over? Like when you breathed a sigh of relief, because I remember getting that text from you saying, I'm 100% cancer free. What was your attitude or response to God for having had gone through all of this? What did all this do for your faith? Tell us about that moment. Like, what was that moment like? We talked about the moment when you were diagnosed, but now tell us about the moment when it was done.
So while I was getting treatment, pastor at an altar call told me that God had spoke to him and told him that I would be healed. I don't know if he remembers that, but I sure do. And so then when I went into remission, I think it was graceful, but turns out I don't remember a lot of that summer. But I went into remission. Everything was great. I was on cloud 9. It was sing his praise from the rooftops. I'll tell anybody that'll listen to me, look what it did. That's all I had to do. Faith and believing, and look, I'm healed, and I'm a poster child for becoming a Christian. Look what it can do for your life, et cetera, et cetera. I was on cloud 9. In hindsight, I was probably a little naive. Not about my faith, but I still didn't have that. I had a good faith base. So I probably started out at like a 1, and I got to about a 5 or 6 at this point where, oh yeah, that's why I'm here. He did what I prayed for. My prayers were answered. And it's easy to have good faith if your prayers have been answered.
Yes.
That's when it's easy to have that faith. He had answered our prayers. And when my faith was low leading up to that, you can draw on other people's faith. Did you know that? You really can. See, if you have somebody that has more faith than you just kind of take a little of that, and I'll take a little here, and I took some from Rosemary. It took a lot from Rosemary, but she had plenty to give. She and Glenn. Really, you just find people, and I need a little bit of that. Oh, you got some, I'll take that too. And that was part of that summer to getting to that level 6 on faith, is stealing some of everybody else's.
And I think as a church, do you remember that point? I think we were all kind of like, yes, look what God did. God healed. This is great. This is awesome. But then this is the kind of the moment that I know left me, like, I remember when you called me, I was like, I told Reba, I didn't even know what to say.
No, and I
So
and I
tell
started
us
telling
about
people.
that.
So I lived in that euphoria of remission 9 short months. Out of nowhere, we had Dusty and I were. I mean, and I was living life. Not that I'm not now. I really am now, but. I was like, oh, right, let's go. We can do this. We got this. That's all behind us. Let's go. And lo and behold, all of a sudden I didn't feel good. And I thought, And something in the back of my head said, call doc, something's not right. Well, fortunately, we caught it very quickly, but cancer returned. I ended up having another major surgery. I endured chemo up until February of this year. Kept my hair this time, but endured chemo this time.
And the surgery was, it's mind-blowing, the surgery. Share just a second of how this worked.
So when I initially was diagnosed in 16, they did what they called debulking surgery, and I had 58 staples from my sternum to my pubic bone. They opened me up, and then so that was in March, and then a year later in July, they did the same thing. They came across an experimental procedure called HIPEC. I did some reading on it, and I said, let's do it. I'll do it all. Whatever you got, I'll do it. And once again, same incision. And so I came home from the hospital. I had surgery like July 17th of last year. Came home. I snuck home. I left Dusty working in the city. I called my mom. I said, can you smuggle me home? I want to go see my kids. And Dusty will want to try and follow me, and I can't deal with him mother henning me. Because he's grinning now. He knows exactly what I mean. And so I did. And then I realized I couldn't adult without my wallet or my purse or my clothes. And so I had to call into the hospital to bring me that stuff. But I was going to escape and just tell him, stay here in the city, finish working, I'll be at home. And when I was diagnosed again, I mean, Dusty and I, man, if that doesn't kick you in the teeth, nothing does in your faith. I mean, I went from like a 6 or a 7. I mean, I'm riding this high of, look what he's done. And it's like, now wait a minute. I know for a fact I haven't done anything this time. What could I have done? It was 9 months. I can't really booger that up that bad. And so I felt like, okay, you done it once. You must have thought I did a pretty good job the first time. And we got to do it again. And that's all I could do. I had learned from that first really rough thing, diagnosis to the initial, up to that point. I learned that if you just gotta give it to him, you have to. There is no other option. If you learn anything today from me, you give it to him, and you have to truly, in your heart, give it away. You can't still sit and worry about it. You can't still sit and contemplate what if. You give it away, and you just start walking, and you've got to know he's not up here. He's not like up here. He's not this. He's here. He's here. He's right here with you. He's right here. And I kind of tried to explain it to my children the other day. Like, isn't that kind of a funny thing if you think about telling little kids that there's this man, they think he has a man's face, kind of floating around watching them? No, it's that voice. It's that right here for you. So I had started having the conversation and building that relationship. So there's different things that lead to being a Christian. And some of the more experienced Christians in here can tell you, you have to have your faith, and you have to be prayerful, and you have this. And one of the biggest things is a relationship with God. So I'd gotten to the point where we were just like BFFs. Best friends. Like, hey, what are you up to today? Hey, this really aches right now. Do you think you could do something about it? I mean, thanks for keeping me here. I appreciate that. But this really hurts. Can you help me out here? Literally, just throughout my day. And since then, I have made it a point to try very hard every day just to sit down and say, hey, thanks. I like this. Thank you for keeping me here. Thank you for giving me this life. it's not always been pretty, but thanks, because you gave it to me. I like it, you know? I don't know, it just, you have to be thankful for that relationship where you can back and forth, because you can't do it wrong. I always thought there was some magical way to pray, and you had to go, no, just start talking. He knows. You don't even have to talk, really, but I like to, obviously.
Thank you. So obviously we see how this affected your faith, how the first time prepared you for the second time. We're going to kind of jump to how has your church family helped you through this struggle?
Okay.
And helped you build your faith? Did they and do they play an important role in your faith journey?
Okay. So along that way, you know, obviously I always had, I had questions. Don't be afraid if you have questions. I still didn't know. I still don't know exactly how all this works, but I got a general idea, and he's okay with that. I've got the main parts figured out. But I can remember thinking and calling people, specifically more my church family. A lot of times I call Rosemary or Pastor and say, hey. And so I remember I finally text Pastor because I was embarrassed to ask this. And I said, I think I heard God today, but I don't know what it sounds like. And he said, it's the calm, still voice. And I said, I did. Once again, ranting, and it's the first time in my life. So I've been diagnosed with cancer twice before I even heard the voice of God. Took a minute. And I was really starting to kind of wonder if, like, I'd done something wrong. He wasn't talking, you know, come on, all this one way. I kind of like the two-way conversation. And I had said, what makes you think I can do this again? And he said to me, the same power in me is in you. That's all I heard. I can tell you where I was between here and Arma on the back road. I can tell you I was northbound, the whole 9 yards. And that was the first time. So having those questions, I had a family here that I could bounce those questions off of. You know, the financial support, the prayers, the constant prayers, the faith. Like I said, I drew off the faith. I drew off the prayers. It takes more than your own prayers. You probably, if you need prayer, you probably need to tell somebody that, because two prayers are better than one. Yeah. You know, and you know, we talk about it when we all gather together in agreement, and that's what it is. My church family has been, there was less stress because of them. There was more support than I ever thought possible. I can remember getting the diagnosis, and the next thing you know, there were shirts with my name on them. And I thought, I'm not that important. I can remember thinking, I'm not so important. My name needs to go on a shirt. You know, like, we'll figure this out. I hadn't really realized how much of a family I had. We didn't realize how devoted our church family was until things like that started happening. And then people had flocks of flamingos in their front yard, and I just kind of started ducking my head because I wasn't sure what to do with it. You know, I wasn't sure what that all was. I mean, and it would be calling, because one night Dusty had to take me to the ER. It was Father's Day 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years this Father's Day. Had taken me to the ER. I'd started running a fever on chemo, and if anybody knows anything, that's real bad. And we couldn't find anybody to keep the kids, and we knew what was going to happen with me. We knew they were going to ship me back to KU. And we just stopped at Mark and Reva's along the way and like, hi, here's 2 kids. We'll see you when we can. And, of course, door open, kids went in. I ended up being transported by ambulance back up to KU that night. And so church family being there has been part of this entire puzzle. I guess I've been lucky enough. I have all the pieces to put together to make this kind of journey complete. I think I'm a better person for everything. I think I'm more carefree. I worry less. I worry far less about what people think. Because guess what? It's not between you and I. It's between he and I. Amen. And if you don't like something somebody's doing, I am now able to say, I don't care. They can sort that out. I'll give you the guidance on what I think, but it's not me to say this is right, that's wrong. And it's that much, really, I'm laughing because I feel so much relief not having to say, oh, what you're doing is wrong, no, I'm just chilling. I'm just watching. I know I'm doing what I should be. And if I can set an example for others, I'm going to.
Last question, Danielle. What would you say to someone today, right here, or even listening online later, who is finding it really hard to believe, finding it really hard to keep the faith? What encouragement could you give them today?
Obviously, I've been there. And if you don't have your own faith, you start drawing on the faith of others. Ask questions. You have to have a relationship with God. You have to. None of this works. That is the very first step. You can have a relationship with him before you even accept him as your Lord and Savior. You've got to establish some kind of rapport. I know people that write. That's how they pray. They write. They write their feelings and things and their prayers. They write them down. I know people that talk aloud. Some people just keep them in their heart. But God knows the heart, so it's not an issue. There are different ways, but you have to form that relationship. You have to be able to tell him anything. That's the good. That's the bad. He knows it anyway. You might as well confess it. You might as well speak it, and it's gone. It's really, you can get into and I say this, it's a casual, I did that, didn't I? I'm sorry. And it's that simple. We're on. It's not this formal, I got to wait till Sunday, till pastor calls for altar call to get on my knees and ask. No, you ask as soon as it's happened, and it's done. It's gone. It's okay to be mad at God. That was one it took me a minute to figure out. If your faith is low, it's okay. It doesn't mean it's gone. It might be low. It's okay to be mad. He knows that. It's okay to say, I'm mad at you. I love you, but I do not like the situation you've got me in. I don't like this part of your plan. I still don't like this part of his plan, but I'm going to run with it because what other choice do I really have? Really, I don't like this part of the plan. I don't like worrying and wondering and what does 9 months look like from now for me, because I'm back into remission again. I've been in remission again since late January. So, I have to be honest with him and say, I'm upset, but I still love you. But does he get upset with me but still love me? Yes. So it's a two-way street. It's that you have to have that relationship. You can get that relationship. I got some keys to get that relationship because I feel like that is the most important. Any kind of Christian, you have to have that faith base. You have to surround yourself with fellow Christians. It does not have to be churchgoers, but you have to find somebody that's some of my dearest question bouncers. One of them is Mary Lou Peace. She lives in Arma. She helped me find my absolute favorite Bible. She has helped me a number of times when I was just questioning. She answers those questions. I have people in my life that have just been devoted to helping me stay positive and speak life. And it's not necessarily churchgoers, but you're not going to go to the bar on Saturday night and find your faith. You're not going to go to some of these places and find your faith. You're going to have to surround yourself with those people. You speak life, not death. You're going to have to speak positive about what's going on. Yes, the finances are rough. Yes, this is not getting done. Yes, this is going on. Yes, I don't feel good. Kids are sick. Toilet's broke and all this. No, you know what? The heater's still running and there's food in the fridge. It's kind of nice out, so we don't have to worry about this. You have to find the positive in life. If not, the negative will consume you. You will eventually become a very negative person. The more positive you focus on, the more positive you become. And you have to know it's all good. God's got this. It's all good. You have got the easiest job in the world. All you have to do is believe. Now, it's easy to say that. But you can't, without adversity, your faith will not build. I do not think that's the case for everyone, but it is for me. In the face of adversity, I have been able to go from that 1 to the 6. I'd like to think I'm at an 8 and 9 now. I still have my questions, and I still have my days where I'm not happy with what's going on. But I now have an avenue to ask about that and fix that. I now have a way of saying, hey, really? This is what we're going to do today? Well, I'm going to need some help. I'm going to need you to guide me through this. I'm not going to do this on my own. I can already tell you how this is going to go. So it's even that rapport now. That's what it looks like for me. We just have this chit chat.
Danielle, I think I speak for a lot of people, say you really are inspiring for a lot of us. And you guys need to share this. This will be audio, will be up later today. You need to share this testimony. I think there's a lot of people who could definitely benefit from hearing this. So thank you so much for sharing this. Give Danielle a hand. We appreciate that.
Sunday morning.